Carl Jung and Fated Love. How to know if that person is for you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever met someone who feels like they were meant to cross your path? As if your souls recognized each other long before words were spoken? In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore how Jung's profound insights into the psyche, projections, and synchronicity can help you understand whether that powerful connection in your life is true love or simply unresolved wounds disguised as destiny. Before we begin, share in the comments. Have you ever experienced a connection that felt fated? Let's journey inward together to discover how to recognize the difference between illusion and soul-aligned truth. 1. Fated connections are mirrors, not coincidences. Certain people don't just enter our lives, they interrupt them. They don't feel like strangers. They feel like déjà vu wrapped in skin, like echoes of something ancient we've forgotten, but somehow still feel. Carl Jung taught that these intense, magnetic connections are not coincidences. They are the psyche's way of calling attention to what lies hidden beneath the surface. These people appear not to fulfill our fantasies, but to reflect our unfinished emotional business, to mirror our unconscious patterns, our unmet needs, our forgotten wounds. That's why fated love can feel so overwhelming. It's not just attraction, it's recognition. When a connection hits you on a soul level, it often reopens old chapters you thought were closed. You might feel pulled, triggered, even confused. But this isn't a mistake, it's a message. Jung believed that the psyche sends us signals through people, nudging us towards self-awareness. The more intense the relationship, the deeper the reflection. You're not falling for them. You're falling into yourself, into the parts you've avoided. These people awaken what was asleep in you. Your vulnerability, your fear of abandonment, your need for control, or your longing to be seen fully and loved anyway. Take a moment to recall someone who entered your life and stirred everything up. Maybe they didn't stay. Maybe they couldn't. But their presence cracked something open. You started asking deeper questions. You started noticing patterns that repeated not just with them, but across your entire relationship history. That discomfort wasn't punishment, it was guidance. According to Jung, we project the hidden parts of ourselves onto others, and through those projections, we have the opportunity to become whole. But only if we pay attention. Fated connections demand self-inquiry. They force us to sit with contradictions. They don't come wrapped in clarity or stability. They arrive wrapped in emotional intensity and uncertainty. But that's the point. They wake us up. They make us choose between staying asleep in our patterns or rising into conscious love. And even when they end, they leave us altered. You begin to see yourself more clearly. You stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop fearing solitude and start honoring your standards. This is not romantic tragedy, it's psychological alchemy. So while the world obsesses over finding the one, Carl Jung invites us to ask a more transformative question. What is this person here to show me about myself? Fated love isn't always about lifelong partnership. Sometimes it's about soul-deep transformation. And sometimes the greatest love story you experience is the one that awakens you to your own inner truth. Are you beginning to see the deeper meaning behind your connections? If this message resonates with you, comment below, "I see the mirror," to affirm your awareness and growth. 2. Love is a pathway to inner growth, not escape. Carl Jung believed that love is not meant to complete us, but to awaken us. True, fated love doesn't rescue us from loneliness. It reveals us to ourselves. It breaks through the layers we've carefully built to protect our wounds, our longings, and our forgotten truths. When someone enters your life and stirs your emotions so deeply that you feel both joy and chaos, it's not necessarily a sign of romantic perfection. Instead, it's often a soul-level signal that something within you is ready to be healed, transformed, or finally seen. In Jungian psychology, relationships that feel destined are not accidents. These people show up to mirror our inner landscape. They reflect back the parts of ourselves we've ignored, the pain we've buried, the fears we've denied, and even the potential we've never dared to claim. This mirroring is not always comfortable. It can be disorienting, emotional, even painful. But it's also sacred, because in that reflection, we're invited to grow, not by changing the other person, but by confronting ourselves. The intensity of fated love often comes from its symbolic weight. These connections feel ancient because they are woven with archetypes that live in our collective unconscious. It's why you may feel like you've known someone forever, even if you just met. It's why you can feel an inexplicable pull toward them, even if logic tells you to walk away. Their presence triggers deep emotional memory. This isn't about past lives or fantasy. It's about your soul recognizing a pattern it needs to resolve, evolve, or integrate. Not all intense love is meant to stay. Some people are here to open the door, not walk with us through it. But that doesn't make their arrival any less meaningful. In fact, these short-lived, soul-stirring encounters often leave the deepest marks. They force us to ask hard questions, confront old stories, and rediscover parts of ourselves we lost. Through their presence, and sometimes through their departure, we're guided back to our own emotional truth. Spiritual wisdom teaches us to shift our focus from possession to purpose. Instead of clinging to a person out of fear of loss, we learn to honor what the connection awakened within us. The heartbreak, the bliss, the confusion, they're all part of the transformation. We stop seeing love as something to keep and begin seeing it as something that teaches. Each relationship becomes an initiation into deeper self-awareness. When we embrace this lens, love stops being about fantasy and becomes a sacred journey. It becomes the fire that burns away illusion. It becomes the mirror that reveals our shadow and our light. It becomes the spiritual catalyst that pushes us toward wholeness, not because someone else completes us, but because they help us remember that we were never broken to begin with. Through this kind of love, we don't just find another person, we find ourselves. And that, Jung would say, is the true purpose of fated connection. Have you ever loved someone who helped you grow, not escape? If so, share your story in the comments to inspire others. If not, comment, "I'm ready to grow through love," and begin your journey of inner awakening. 3. Synchronicity and projection. Define relationships. Jung's concept of synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence, helps us understand why certain people feel like destiny. When you meet someone and it feels like the universe has placed them in your path for a reason, it's often more than just chemistry. It's your unconscious mind trying to reveal something hidden inside you. At the same time, Jung also introduced the idea of projection, where we unconsciously cast parts of our inner world onto others. That means the intense feelings you experience may not actually be about the person in front of you, but about the unhealed or unexpressed parts of yourself they reflect. You might believe you're falling in love with someone because of who they are, but in many cases, you're drawn to what they symbolize, perhaps a missing part of your emotional life, a quality you've suppressed, or even a deep wound longing to be healed. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These seemingly destined relationships often serve as mirrors, showing you what your soul is trying to awaken within. They are not accidents. They are invitations for spiritual awakening. When someone enters your life and shakes your core, it's easy to label it as fate. But the deeper truth is that these people often come as catalysts. They trigger transformation by touching your most vulnerable places. Some activate joy, others awaken grief, and many do both at once. They might not stay, but they ignite something permanent: awareness. That's why these connections feel unforgettable. They are soul encounters, even if they don't end in lifelong partnership. But not every intense connection is true love. Some are projections of your unmet needs. When you lack self-love, you might be pulled to those who reflect what you crave: validation, protection, intimacy. These people don't complete you. They reveal what you must complete within yourself. Real love requires presence, not illusion. It starts when you stop searching for someone to fill the void and instead begin integrating what you once disowned. That's when you shift from blind fate to conscious choice. You begin to see clearly who is actually standing before you and what within you is responding. This is the heart of spiritual wisdom, the understanding that not every love is meant to be held, but every love is meant to teach. The people who break you open often give you the pieces to rebuild yourself more whole. Some souls are not here to walk with you forever, but to awaken the part of you that forgot how to walk alone with grace. So when you ask, why did they come into my life? Consider this. Maybe they were never meant to stay. Maybe they were meant to reflect your soul back to you, so clearly and so powerfully that you had no choice but to finally see it. If this message has helped you see your relationships more clearly, subscribe to our channel and join a community that explores the deeper meaning behind love, timing, and soul connection. Here, we grow together in insight and spiritual wisdom because the people we meet are never random, and neither are you. 4. Painful relationships can be soul activations. The ones who hurt you the most often carry the hidden keys to your transformation, not because pain is noble or justified, but because it reveals the parts of you that still need healing. Emotional wounds in relationships are not always signs of failure. Sometimes they are sacred invitations, urgent awakenings that force you to look inward, deeper than you ever dared before. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And in love, this becomes strikingly clear. The person who shattered your sense of self may have unknowingly opened the door to your real self. Heartbreak has a way of stripping away illusion. When someone triggers your deepest insecurities, fear of abandonment, feelings of inadequacy, the desperate need to be chosen, it may feel like torment. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. You are meeting the parts of yourself you had disowned. You are confronting the buried narratives from childhood and past wounds that you once covered up with the idea that love would save you. In Carl Jung's language, this is the moment when the shadow rises to be seen. The relationship was never just about them. It was a mirror, reflecting what was hidden within you. A woman named Maya once believed she had met her twin flame. The chemistry was magnetic, the connection instant. Yet, the relationship quickly descended into chaos. He was hot and cold. She felt emotionally starved. Still, she stayed, hoping love would fix it. What she didn't realize was that the emotional starvation wasn't new. It was old. It came from a father who was emotionally unavailable, and a mother who taught her love meant sacrifice. This man, unknowingly, reactivated the pain she had spent her entire life avoiding, and in doing so, he brought it to the surface, where it could finally be seen and healed. Carl Jung believed we attract people who reflect unconscious parts of our psyche. He called it projection. We project our unmet needs, our wounds, even our potential onto others. And when they disappoint us or abandon us, we're not just grieving them, we're grieving the dream, the healing we thought they would bring, the parts of us we hoped they would love into wholeness. But in that disappointment, we find ourselves. We stop outsourcing salvation and start the journey of individuation, becoming our truest, most integrated self. Painful relationships are not detours from your path. They are the path. They burn away illusions. They crack open numbness, and they invite you to grow. You don't need to romanticize suffering, but you can recognize its role. The love that hurt you may have been the catalyst that led you back to yourself. You may not have chosen that lesson, but you can choose what you do with it now. When you look back, you'll see that the moment everything broke was also the moment everything began. The ones who leave you aching are sometimes the ones who awaken you completely. That is the paradox of growth. Through loss, we discover our wholeness. Through projection, we retrieve our soul. And through love, especially the painful kind, we step into a deeper spiritual awakening. One Carl Jung understood not as a dream, but as a lived psychological rebirth. Comment below. I welcome soul activation if you're ready to turn pain into purpose. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss a moment of growth and healing. 5. True love accepts, heals, and expands. Genuine love doesn't try to change you into something more convenient. It meets you exactly where you are, unfiltered, unfinished, and still growing. It doesn't flinch at your shadows or cling only to your light. Instead, it embraces the full spectrum of who you are, your doubts, your scars, your laughter, your silence. It doesn't rush to heal you or offer advice from a pedestal. It simply stays with presence, with patience, and with emotional honesty. In the realm of spiritual wisdom, this kind of love isn't just rare, it's sacred. It doesn't seek to possess or fix. It listens, it learns, it evolves beside you, not ahead of you. There is no pressure to perform or to be perfect. You're allowed to be raw, real, and in the middle of your transformation. This love holds space for contradictions, for the parts of you that want to move forward and the parts of you still clinging to the past. It doesn't demand resolution, it offers resonance. It understands that spiritual awakening isn't about reaching a finish line, it's about deepening your presence along the way. That's why fated love never feels like force. It feels like freedom. The kind of freedom that allows you to exhale, to release the armor, and to stand bare-souled without shame. Healing within this connection happens not because someone tells you what to fix, but because they reflect back to you a truer version of yourself, one you may have forgotten. They become a mirror for your strength, your softness, and your soul. They hold you, not to shape you, but to remind you that you are already worthy of love, even in your becoming. And the more you feel safe, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you grow. That is the quiet power of being seen and still being held. True love expands you by grounding you. It doesn't overwhelm your nervous system with highs and lows, or confuse drama with passion. It invites you into stillness, into depth. You begin to notice the divine in everyday things, how they speak, how they hold your gaze, how they listen without interrupting. You become more intuitive, more attuned to your own needs, and less willing to betray your peace for temporary affection. There's no facade to maintain, no mask to wear. You become more you because they love all of you. This love doesn't seek forever for the sake of forever. It seeks alignment. Sometimes that means a lifetime. Other times it means a chapter. But regardless of length, the impact is eternal. It shifts you. It wakes you. It teaches you how to stay present with your own soul. Not every fated connection will stay, but every one of them leaves a mark that makes you wiser, softer, and more whole. In the end, spiritual wisdom reminds us, real love doesn't demand your surrender. It teaches you how to return to yourself freely, bravely, and completely. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on how true love accepts, heals, and helps you grow into your highest self without pressure, without perfection, just presence. 6. The role of anima, animus, and archetypes. In your search for love, have you ever met someone who felt like a missing piece of your soul, so magnetically familiar that it almost seemed destined? If so, you're not alone. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that these powerful attractions often have less to do with fate and more to do with the unseen energies moving within us, specifically our inner masculine and feminine forces. Jung called these unconscious aspects the anima and the animus. The anima is the feminine image within the male psyche, while the animus is the masculine counterpart within the female psyche. They are not just abstract ideas, they are living energies shaped by our upbringing, personal experiences, culture, and even collective history. And without realizing it, we project them onto others, usually onto those we fall in love with. This means that when you feel a sudden, overwhelming connection to someone, what you may actually be experiencing is your anima or animus reaching out from within you, appearing in the outer world, embodied in another person. It feels divine, like destiny, but it's actually your own psyche seeking wholeness. This is not to say the connection isn't real, but it may be rooted more in your inner world than you initially think. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This transformation often begins through projection. We idealize the other person. We believe they complete us. But this illusion eventually fades. What once seemed like spiritual perfection may begin to feel like confusion or disappointment. That is the moment when the spiritual awakening begins, not when you meet them, but when you begin to see them clearly and choose to love them as they are, not as your unconscious made them appear. To love consciously is to reclaim your projections. When you integrate your anima or animus, you no longer need someone else to reflect it for you. Instead of seeking wholeness in someone else, you become whole within yourself. And from that space, you can enter a relationship rooted not in fantasy, but in reality, one where both souls see, support, and elevate each other. The archetypes within us, lover, hero, healer, mother, magician, are not just stories. They are psychological blueprints. They influence who we're drawn to and how we show up in love. If you're unaware of these archetypes, you may unconsciously play out the same emotional patterns again and again, mistaking spiritual wounds for spiritual signs. But here's the truth. Not everyone who feels magical is meant to stay. Some are mirrors, some are messengers, and some are meant to awaken parts of you that you forgot existed. The more you become aware of your inner archetypes, the more clarity you'll have about why certain people enter your life and why some are not meant to stay. So if you find yourself asking, is this person the one? Ask first, what part of myself are they reflecting? That question may lead you to a far more transformative answer. Because love, as Jung would remind us, is not about fusion, it's about individuation. It's the sacred process of becoming whole, not by merging with another, but by integrating the lost parts of yourself. This is where spiritual awakening begins, not in the arms of another, but in the quiet realization that everything you've been searching for externally has always lived within you. And once you reclaim it, love no longer becomes about finding the one. It becomes about being the one fully, freely, and consciously. And if this message resonates with you, type, "I embrace my inner wholeness" in the comments to affirm your journey of conscious love and integration. Let's awaken and evolve together. 7. Letting go is sometimes the real healing. Some people don't enter our lives to stay. They arrive to awaken, to shake the soul, to ignite something we didn't even know was asleep. Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." And sometimes, that disguise takes the form of a person we fall deeply for, someone who stirs something ancient within us. The connection feels electric, spiritual, even fated. But with time, we come to see that what they brought was not forever, but a turning point. We often mistake intensity for destiny. When someone feels so deeply familiar, like we've known them across lifetimes, it's tempting to believe they were sent to complete us. But Carl Jung reminds us that the unconscious mind attracts exactly what it needs to evolve. These people come into our lives as mirrors reflecting our unhealed wounds, hidden desires, and dormant potential. They challenge our identity. They awaken parts of us that we abandoned long ago. And sometimes, once their purpose is fulfilled, they must go. A woman I once knew met a man during one of the darkest seasons of her life. He was magnetic, introspective, soulful, and wise beyond his years. It felt as though the universe had orchestrated their meeting. But soon, the highs became chaotic, and the emotional connection turned volatile. She couldn't understand why someone who felt like home could bring so much confusion. But when he left, she was forced to face herself. That pain cracked her open. She began healing the parts of her that were never about him. She stepped into her purpose. The loss became the very thing that led her to her spiritual awakening. Letting go isn't a weakness. It's alignment. It's the recognition that love doesn't always mean possession. Some people are chapters, not the whole book. We don't need to label every deep connection as forever. Some are meant to serve as bridges between who we were and who we are becoming. And trying to hold on after the lesson is learned only delays the growth. When we release someone with clarity and compassion, we make space for wholeness. The ache may linger, but the soul understands. Real healing begins when we no longer beg for their return, but thank them for showing us what we needed to see. The love was not in the staying, but in the transformation it sparked. Carl Jung's work reminds us that the soul's journey isn't about perfect endings. It's about the truth. And truth often reveals itself in loss, in silence, in the space after someone leaves. That space is sacred. It is there, in the quiet aftermath, that we return to ourselves, not broken, but reborn. If you're still here with me, comment below. I'm returning to myself. Your words matter, and they help us grow a community rooted in healing and self-awareness. 8. Individuation is the foundation of conscious love. Individuation is not just a concept, it is the sacred path of becoming whole. According to Carl Jung, we cannot truly love another until we have reclaimed the disowned, forgotten, and wounded parts of ourselves. Too often, people enter relationships hoping to be completed, but this leads only to illusion. Real love isn't about merging into one another or dissolving our identity in the name of romance. It is about two whole beings walking side by side, grounded in their own essence, choosing one another from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. When we skip the inner work and rush into love, what we often experience isn't fate, it's projection. We look at someone and unconsciously assign them roles born from our childhood pain, unmet emotional needs, or internal wounds. The more intense the connection, the more it can reflect what we have yet to face within ourselves. That's why so many fated-feeling relationships are actually mirrors, revealing the parts of us we've been unwilling to acknowledge. They feel magical, yet chaotic, intimate, yet destabilizing. These aren't accidents. They are wake-up calls from the soul. Spiritual wisdom teaches that the heartache we encounter in love is often the exact medicine we need to grow. A relationship that seems destined but ends painfully may not have failed. It may have succeeded in waking us up. It showed us where we still abandon ourselves, what patterns we repeat, and which wounds we project onto others. If we're courageous enough to stay with this discomfort, to sit in the fire without rushing to escape it, something powerful happens. We stop chasing love to heal our pain and start healing our pain to experience real love. This is the core of individuation, the process of integration, where we become responsible for our own inner landscape. Instead of needing someone to fill the void, we learn to hold space for our own emotions, desires, and fears. And as we become whole, we begin to attract relationships that are no longer rooted in trauma bonds or unconscious expectations. We begin to choose love from clarity, not compulsion. We stop asking, "Will this person save me?" and begin asking, "Can we walk together in truth, even through the storm?" There's a quiet strength in this kind of love. It doesn't rush to possess. It honors boundaries. It creates space for the other person to be fully themselves. And it grows from shared purpose rather than mutual escape. These relationships may not have the fireworks of a karmic entanglement, but they offer something far richer: stability, growth, and soul-aligned companionship. Spiritual awakening through love means we stop romanticizing chaos. We no longer confuse emotional highs with deep connection. Instead, we value peace, resonance, and presence. We stop asking, "Is this the one?" and start living as if we are already whole because we are. When two people meet from this level of awareness, their love doesn't consume them. It elevates them. It doesn't complete them. It enhances what's already complete. That is the essence of conscious love. And it begins not with finding the right person, but with becoming the person who no longer seeks salvation in someone else's arms. 9. You must choose yourself. First, the love that is truly meant for you doesn't arrive when you're desperately seeking it in someone else's eyes. It begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. You've spent years twisting your truth to be more palatable, shrinking to fit someone's expectations, silencing your intuition just to keep the peace. But the moment you finally say, "No more," something shifts. Choosing yourself is not an act of arrogance. It's the highest act of spiritual devotion. Because when you stop chasing validation and start honoring your own truth, you don't just change your relationships, you change your energy. And energy never lies. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." This is the very essence of spiritual awakening. When you live outwardly, always reaching, pleasing, proving you exist in a dream built on illusion, you see people not as they are, but as your unhealed parts hope they'll be. But when you turn inward, when you sit with the ache instead of numbing it, when you stop negotiating your worth just to be chosen, you wake up. You realize the real abandonment wasn't done to you. It was something you learned to do to yourself. Real love cannot grow in the soil of self-neglect. It requires self-trust. And self-trust is built in silence, in stillness, in those quiet moments when you choose to stay with yourself, even when it's hard. That is where transformation begins. And from that inner alignment, love is no longer about possession or performance. It becomes a reflection of your own peace. You stop begging to be seen and start recognizing yourself in the mirror. That's when you realize it was never about whether someone else could love you deeply. It was always about whether you could hold space for your own soul to be free. There's a kind of love that doesn't burn you out. It doesn't trigger your wounds or require you to abandon your voice. It's quiet, steady, and sacred. But you won't find that love until you're willing to walk away from the chaos that once felt like chemistry. Until you stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Until you no longer tolerate pain disguised as passion. This is where the real work begins, not in finding the one, but in becoming the one who no longer settles for less than truth. When you choose yourself, you change the entire frequency of your life. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, overextending. You start setting boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as sacred circles to protect your peace. You stop wondering if you're too much or not enough. You realize you are exactly who you are meant to be. And in that knowing, you attract not just a partner, but a mirror. Someone who has done the inner work. Someone who sees you without distortion. Someone who meets your soul instead of feeding your wounds. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's the death of self-abandonment and the rebirth of self-acceptance. It's remembering that love is not something you earn by being less of yourself. It's something you invite by being all of yourself. The love meant for you does not confuse you, betray you, or ask you to dim your light. It holds you, sees you, honors you, because you've finally done that for yourself first. If this message reminded you to stop betraying your own heart, comment below. I choose myself first. I honor my truth. Your words matter, and your healing begins with self-recognition. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the mysteries of the heart and the soul. Whether you believe that love is written in the stars or carved into your psyche, remember, every connection holds meaning, and every emotion is a guide. If this message has stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights into the deeper layers of life and love. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos on destiny, healing, and the truth of who you really are. Until next time, trust the path your soul remembers. Until you respect yourself, nobody else will. Respect yourself, and others will respect you. This timeless wisdom from Confucius still echoes today, especially in a world where we often seek validation from the outside while forgetting our own worth. In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore Carl Jung's powerful message. Until you respect yourself, nobody else will. This isn't just a quote, it's a mirror, asking you to reflect on how you show up in your own life. Are you setting the standard or settling for less? If this message resonates with you, comment below. I choose to honor my worth. Let us know how self-respect has transformed your journey or how you're ready to begin. Watch closely, because the way you treat yourself sets the tone for every relationship in your life. 1. How others treat you mirrors how you treat yourself. People don't always disrespect you because they're cruel often. It's because of what you silently allow. When you stay quiet in the face of mistreatment, constantly overextend yourself, or tolerate being overlooked, you're not just being patient or understanding. You're unknowingly sending a signal to the world. This is what I believe I'm worth. As Carl Jung wisely observed, until you respect yourself, nobody else will. The world mirrors back what you reflect from within. If your self-worth is hidden behind fear, guilt, or a desire to be accepted, others will treat you accordingly. The more you shrink yourself to fit into relationships, the more you become invisible within them. You start thinking that being available, forgiving quickly, and suppressing your discomfort will earn you love. But what it often earns is neglect. The people around you get used to taking you for granted. They stop noticing your silence. They overlook your needs, not because they're blind, but because you've taught them not to look. Meanwhile, the ones who walk with quiet confidence, those who know their time, energy, and boundaries are sacred, rarely beg for respect. They command it without saying a word. They don't explain their worth. They embody it. They're not rude or harsh, but they are clear. Their yes has value because their no is firm. And in their presence, people rise or they walk away. That is the power of self-respect, and it's built one boundary at a time. You might relate more to the overgiver, the peacemaker, the one who always makes room for others, even if it costs you your dignity. Maybe you've been the person who forgives without apologies, who listens without ever being heard, who gives even when depleted. And maybe you've wondered why people disappear once they've gotten what they needed. It's not always personal. Sometimes it's energetic. You offered yourself at a discount, and the world responded with clearance-level care. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches us that healing starts from within. You can't expect people to treat you better than you treat yourself. If you tolerate disrespect, it becomes the standard. If you devalue your needs, others will too. The change begins when you make the internal shift, when you choose not to chase what is not chasing you, when you stop begging for crumbs and decide to be the feast. You become luxury by being selective. By no longer needing to prove your worth, you finally begin to live it. There is a quiet strength in walking away from people who disrespect you without ever raising your voice. There's a rare power in honoring your space so deeply that no one can enter without permission. You stop being reactive. You stop over-explaining. You become grounded in your own truth. That's when people start listening, not because you demand it, but because your energy speaks louder than words ever could. This transformation is not always easy. You may lose people. You may face guilt. You may even doubt your decision at first. But what you gain is far greater. Peace, clarity, and the kind of respect that only shows up when you give it to yourself first. And when you finally step into that level of self-honor, the universe responds. It brings you people who see you clearly, who match your energy, and who recognize that you are not an option. You are the standard. Are you ready to shift the way the world treats you by first shifting how you treat yourself? If so, comment below. I choose self-respect to affirm your commitment to this powerful transformation. 2. The cycle of people-pleasing is rooted in childhood conditioning. You were taught early on, maybe without words, that being quiet, helpful, or emotionally invisible was the safest way to be loved. If you didn't cause trouble, if you anticipated everyone's needs, if you made yourself small enough, you could earn connection. That's how childhood conditioning works. It trains you to survive, not to thrive. And those patterns don't just disappear. When you grow up, they evolve into people-pleasing. You say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you're hurt. You stay when your soul is screaming to leave. All because some part of you still believes that love must be earned through sacrifice. People-pleasing feels like kindness on the surface, but underneath, it's fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of being seen as too much. The fear of finally putting yourself first and realizing that some people only loved you when you didn't. That's the uncomfortable truth. You've been conditioned to believe that self-abandonment is noble, that being needed is the same as being loved. But spiritual wisdom teaches us that true love cannot exist without truth. And truth cannot exist without boundaries. When you suppress your needs to keep the peace, you're not avoiding conflict. You're inviting internal war. That silent war drains your spirit. It shows up in the exhaustion you can't explain, the resentment you hide, the tears you cry alone. You give so much and wonder why so little comes back. But the answer isn't in giving more. The answer is in giving differently. When you begin to see your value not as something to prove, but something to protect, the entire energy of your life shifts. You become someone who no longer chases validation because you've remembered your worth. Respect is not something you beg for. It's something you command through the way you carry yourself. That begins with choosing yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. It's walking away when staying would cost you your peace. It's saying no without writing a novel to justify it. It's understanding that your inner child doesn't need to keep earning love through exhaustion. They need safety, and that safety begins with you. The work is not easy. Breaking a pattern that once kept you safe will feel like breaking your own heart. But it's not destruction, it's liberation. And as you heal, you stop living in reaction to others and start living in alignment with yourself. You stop mistaking silence for peace, tolerance for love, and being needed for being seen. The more you respect yourself, the more you become unavailable to anything that disrespects you. Carl Jung said that what remains unconscious will control your life, and you will call it fate. But now you know better. You've seen the pattern, and the moment you see it, you can change it. That's what spiritual wisdom really is. The courage to live in truth, even if it means disappointing those who only love the version of you that stayed small. Have you ever noticed how your childhood shaped your need to please others? If so, share your story in the comments. It might help someone feel less alone. If not, comment, "I'm ready to break the cycle," to begin your healing journey. 3. The shadow self controls you when ignored. Your shadow holds the parts of you you've been told to hide: your fire, your strength, your boundaries, your truth. These pieces don't disappear. They simply go underground. They wait in silence until one day they rise not with grace, but with chaos. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is not just a psychological insight, it's a spiritual awakening. What you repress begins to run your life. You think people are disrespecting you, but often they are mirroring the disrespect you show yourself by abandoning your truth. When you don't own your boundaries, you attract people who step all over them. When you silence your anger, it shows up in passive-aggressive words or emotional breakdowns. When you bury your power to please others, you become invisible, even to yourself. This is not humility, it's self-betrayal, and the world feels it. The universe responds not to your words, but to your energy. If your energy says, "I don't matter," the world will agree. Reclaiming the shadow isn't about becoming loud or aggressive. It's about becoming whole. It's about integrating the rejected parts of yourself and saying, "Even this part of me is worthy." When you do this, you stop leaking energy. You stop attracting relationships that drain you. You no longer feel the need to beg for respect because you have already given it to yourself. People treat you according to the standard you set. And when your standard is wholeness, they either rise to meet you or fall away. Think of the times you said yes when everything in your gut screamed no. That is where your shadow lives, in the silence of compliance, in the smile you forced, in the love you gave while betraying your own soul. But the moment you say, "Enough," is the moment you begin to reclaim your life. Spiritual wisdom is not about staying calm while people cross your boundaries. It's about being so rooted in your truth that peace becomes your natural state, not because the world is kind, but because you have become unshakable. Each time you honor your true feelings instead of hiding them, you become more magnetic. Your energy shifts. You stop being an option and start becoming a presence. You no longer attract disrespect. because there's no space in your field for it. This is how the shadow transforms from a saboteur to a source of sacred power. Until you respect yourself, no one else truly will. Not because they're cruel, but because people subconsciously follow the cues you send. When you glow with self-trust, you teach others how to treat you not with fear, but with reverence. And in that radiant alignment, your spiritual awakening deepens not by becoming someone new, but by finally embracing who you've always been. If this message about the shadow self resonates with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that helps you awaken and grow. Comment below, "I am ready to face my shadow and reclaim my power." 4. True respect begins with boundaries. You teach others how to treat you by the boundaries you set, not by how much you give or how available you are. Saying no is not a rejection of love or connection. It's a declaration of self-respect. Yet so many people feel guilty when they try to set limits, as if choosing themselves is somehow a betrayal of others. But guilt isn't always a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes, it's the residue of old programming of childhood dynamics, where saying no meant being unloved, ignored, or punished. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And acceptance begins the moment you choose your peace over people-pleasing. When you allow your boundaries to be pushed for the sake of harmony, you're not keeping peace, you're suppressing your truth. Every yes that violates your values is a quiet act of self-abandonment. You begin to feel invisible, even when surrounded by others. Why? Because people can only see you clearly when you are willing to be authentic. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that becoming whole means integrating our shadows, our discomfort, and our truth, not just the parts that are easy to love. There's a woman who used to give endlessly to her family, her workplace, her friends. She thought being kind meant saying yes to everything. But behind her smile was exhaustion. She felt unseen, used, and unappreciated. One day, she decided to stop apologizing for needing space. She stopped answering late-night calls. She started saying, "I can't help right now," and let the silence that followed do the talking. Some people drifted away. Others got angry. But something else happened too. She started breathing easier. Her body softened. Her soul stopped screaming. That was the moment she realized losing people who only loved her compliance was not a loss at all. It was a blessing. Boundaries are not punishments. They are invitations to love in a healthier, more honest way. They say, "Here's how I need to be treated if you want to stay in my life." And the people who value you will rise to meet those standards. Those who don't, let them fall away. You cannot keep shrinking just to keep others comfortable. The moment you begin to honor your emotional, mental, and spiritual limits is the moment you step into your power. Carl Jung believed that the path to true selfhood, what he called individuation, requires standing in that power, even when it's uncomfortable. The real work of spiritual awakening is not about floating above your life. It's about rooting deeply into your truth. It's about protecting your time, energy, and emotional space like sacred ground. You don't need to explain your no. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to earn rest or prove your worth through overgiving. You are worthy because you exist. And when you begin to act like it, others will follow your lead. Stop expecting others to hand you the respect you haven't given yourself. Start modeling what you deserve. Speak clearly. Stand firm. Let discomfort refine you, not define you. Because the only way to teach the world how to love you is to show them how you love yourself. If you're ready to honor your worth and set powerful boundaries, comment below. I choose self-respect over guilt. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message that supports your personal growth and inner strength. 5. External respect will never heal. Internal lack. You can't force others to respect you if you haven't yet chosen to respect yourself. No matter how much love, effort, or goodness you pour into people, it will never be enough if you do it from a place of lack. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you become. It's not earned by constantly saying yes, staying silent to keep the peace, or sacrificing your well-being so others feel comfortable. It's shown in how you hold your own boundaries, how you speak to yourself, and how you honor your energy when no one is watching. The hard truth is, people learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. If you constantly explain your worth, overextend yourself, or tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone, you send a message. I don't believe I'm enough unless you approve of me. But no amount of approval can heal the wound of self-abandonment. And the more you betray your own needs to be accepted, the further you drift from your own power. Real self-respect isn't loud. It's steady. It shows up in quiet decisions. You stop over-explaining. You walk away from things that insult your soul, even if it means walking alone. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come, and instead, give yourself closure through truth. You stop expecting others to validate you, and instead, begin validating yourself, your feelings, your voice, your worth. And when this shift happens, something sacred unfolds. Your energy changes. You begin to carry yourself with calm, unapologetic presence. You say less, but mean more. People notice, not because you've demanded respect, but because your entire being radiates it. You're no longer performing for love. You're embodying it. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. This is what spiritual wisdom teaches us. The world doesn't give you what you want. It reflects what you believe you deserve. And the moment you stop begging for crumbs and start setting the table for yourself, everything changes. Your relationships shift. Your peace deepens. Your standards rise. Not from bitterness, but from clarity. Because you finally remembered who you are, and you're no longer willing to abandon yourself to be liked. People may not understand this transformation. Some will fall away. Some will call you difficult or too distant. Let them. You're not here to be accessible to everyone. You're here to be authentic to yourself. Respect isn't about being agreeable. It's about being aligned. And when you respect yourself, deeply, consistently, and quietly, the world has no choice but to follow your lead. Stay connected with our community of spiritual wisdom by subscribing to our channel. Here, we explore the journey of self-worth, healing, and inner power. Remember, true respect begins within, and you are worthy of honoring yourself fully every single day. 6. Practical actions rebuild inner respect. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But to become who you truly are, You must begin with self-respect, not as a performance for others, but as a sacred commitment to yourself. This kind of respect is not loud. It doesn't beg for validation. It lives in the quiet choices you make every day, like the choice to pause before reacting. In that pause, you reclaim your power. You teach yourself that you are not a puppet of emotions or other people's chaos. You become the calm in the storm, not because the storm disappears, but because you remember that your peace is non-negotiable. Refusing to over-explain is another act of quiet rebellion. Every time you catch yourself justifying your boundaries or over-clarifying your truth, stop. Over-explaining drains your soul and makes it seem like your worth depends on someone else's understanding. But it doesn't. Your truth doesn't need to be watered down for it to be real. You are not required to convince anyone. When you speak less and stand taller, your silence becomes power. And power rooted in self-respect doesn't scream, it radiates. To respect yourself is also to prioritize your needs. So many people confuse self-sacrifice with goodness. But abandoning yourself is not a virtue, it's self-betrayal. When you consistently ignore your needs, you teach yourself that you are not important, that your well-being can wait. But your spirit is always listening. It notices when you choose others over yourself again and again. True spiritual awakening begins when you realize that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Not more, not less equally. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred alignment with your soul. Each small act of self-respect, whether it's walking away from chaos, saying no with grace, or simply showing up for yourself, adds up. You begin to rebuild the invisible structure within you. The more you practice it, the more your energy changes. And when your energy shifts, your reality responds. People notice. Life opens up. You stop attracting people who disrespect you because you no longer disrespect yourself. Your inner world becomes rooted, and so your outer world begins to reflect that stability. Spiritual awakening is not always about grand revelations or mystical moments. Sometimes it's as simple as getting enough rest, turning off your phone, or choosing silence over conflict. It's about honoring the small voice inside that says, "This doesn't feel right," and having the courage to listen. You evolve not by proving your worth, but by living as if it were already undeniable. And the moment you start treating yourself like you matter, the world has no choice but to follow. If this message has spoken to your heart today, leave a comment of commitment. I honor myself through daily choices. Let this be your declaration of inner respect. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone on the path of healing. 7. Emotional independence is the key to authentic power. Emotional independence is the foundation of authentic power, yet many people unknowingly live their lives in silent bondage to the fear of being alone. This fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers in the background of your daily choices when you stay in a draining relationship just to avoid emptiness, when you suppress your truth to keep the peace, when you accept less than you deserve simply because you fear walking alone. As long as your sense of worth is tied to external validation, you'll keep shrinking yourself for acceptance, for closeness, for love that is often conditional and unreliable. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become your true self if you're always morphing to fit the expectations of others? When you chase love out of fear, you're not loving, you're negotiating your dignity. Authentic love cannot bloom in the soil of self-abandonment. The moment you compromise your integrity to be chosen is the moment you've chosen to reject your own soul. That's the hidden cost of emotional dependence. It erodes your boundaries, silences your intuition, and dims your light in exchange for the illusion of connection. There was a woman who had everything on the surface: career, friends, charm, but underneath, she was exhausted. Always the one who reached out first, who forgave too quickly, who made excuses for other people's lack of effort. She didn't know she was trading emotional crumbs for a false sense of security. One night, sitting alone, she whispered a truth that changed everything. If I don't choose me, no one else will. That whisper became a roar. She started setting boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. She stopped chasing apologies, stopped explaining her worth. And in that space of solitude, she found something she had been missing her whole life herself. When you begin to enjoy your own company, when you no longer fear silence, you begin to remember your wholeness. You stop being desperate for company that drains you, and you start attracting relationships that match your new frequency. You're no longer performing for love. You're radiating from self-respect. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with a voice rooted in truth, not in fear. And you finally understand that solitude isn't loneliness, it's sacred space. It's the ground where your power grows. Carl Jung emphasized that wholeness, not perfection, is the true goal of life. Emotional independence is the path to that wholeness. It is the ability to stand in your truth without needing someone else to validate it. It's choosing yourself every day, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of alignment. You don't reject others. You simply stop rejecting yourself. The truth is, no one can truly respect you until you respect yourself. No one can love you in a healthy way until you've stopped needing them to fill the gaps you refuse to face. When you become emotionally independent, you don't become cold, you become clear. And in that clarity, you rediscover the kind of peace, presence, and power that no relationship, no approval, and no compliment can ever substitute. That is the beginning of true spiritual wisdom. That is what Carl Jung meant when he said to become who you truly are. If this message speaks to your heart, share your journey in the comments. How are you learning to choose yourself and find peace in your own presence? Your story may inspire someone else to break free from emotional dependence and reclaim their authentic power. Thank you for watching. Remember, the way you respect yourself sets the standard for how others treat you. When you honor your own worth, the world begins to reflect that back. If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next powerful insight on your journey of healing, growth, and self-discovery. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, walk with purpose and never forget your value.